The assignment came to Leo on an ordinary station cycle. He had been expecting a deployment to a barren moon or a quiet research post. Not a diplomatic observation, posting among the Avari. The Avari were an avian species that soared through immense, hollowed asteroids that drifted in a slow, stately orbit around the red giant they called Homefire. They were feathered, tall, proud, and wonderfully alien in a way that made the xenobiology departments on every human world buzz with fascination. Leo accepted the assignment with calm professionalism. He had trained for missions like this. He trusted his diplomacy skills. He trusted his patience. What he did not know was that the Avari Customs Manual available to humans was missing an entire section, due to a translation misunderstanding years earlier. A missing section that would cause him more trouble than he had ever imagined. He arrived in the Avari capital spire with 2 small bags and the carefully measured steps of someone trying very hard not to offend anyone. The Avari moved with a graceful sweep of wings and a steady rhythm of clawed feet. Their feathers shimmered with subtle shifts of color that reflected emotional states more reliably than their faces. Human eyes struggled to read those colors accurately. Leo had practiced for hours, memorizing the general meanings. A hint of green meant curiosity. A wash of blue meant calm. A band of gold near the tail meant respect. Deep red meant danger. Those were the basics. He hoped they would be enough. His host met him at the entrance platform. Her name was Lynn. She towered over him, but carried herself with a gentle posture that eased his nerves. She spread her wings slightly in greeting, creating a brief arc of pale blue feathers. Leo bowed politely and introduced himself. Lynn replied in a melodic voice that echoed off the crystals embedded in the walls. She welcomed him to the spire and explained that he would be assigned to her personal nest for observation, study, and cultural exchange. She spoke as if this arrangement was perfectly normal. Leo nodded because the briefing had mentioned that living within a host unit was common practice among the Avari. He expected a separate room near her workplace, a sort of guest habitation, not a nest. He assumed the translation was loose. He did not know how literal it was. They ascended spiraling ramps that hugged the interior walls of the spire. Warm air currents drifted in vertical shafts, carrying faint scents of fruit, wind, and feather oils. Avari architecture mixed natural growths with sculpted stone. Leo watched with admiration. Every perch and balcony hummed with purposeful design. He felt small among them, not just in size but in cultural presence. A lone human among a civilization that had taken flight long before his people had left their own atmosphere. Lynn led him through a narrow archway. Beyond it lay an open chamber shaped like a shallow bowl. The floor was covered in layered fibers, woven into soft, thick bedding. The walls displayed painted symbols that resembled feathers falling toward the center. Soft light cascaded from vents overhead, creating an illusion of a sunrise frozen in place. This was her nest. Her actual nest. Leo froze. Lynn watched him with feathers tinged gently green. She interpreted his hesitation as curiosity rather than shock. "This space will comfort you," she said in a tone that suggested certainty. "You will sleep here near me so that trust may be learned." Leo smiled politely. "Thank you. I appreciate your hospitality." He set down his bags and took in the room again. He wondered if there was a missing guest compartment somewhere. Lynn stepped closer and brushed her wing across his shoulder in a gesture that he assumed meant reassurance. He did not know that the same gesture was used among Avari courting pairs. The colors of her feathers shifted subtly. Leo saw faint rose hues and thought she might be warm from exertion. He had no idea the shade meant anticipation. The first night he spent in the nest was uncomfortable but manageable. The bedding was soft but uneven. The chamber temperature ran warm to suit avian metabolism. Lin slept opposite him, curled in a heap of feathers. She breathed with a slow rustling sound. At one point, she chirped in her sleep, and one of her wings flopped across his legs. Leo moved it gently aside. He thought nothing of it. Lin dreamed of future harmony, thinking his closeness was intentional. In the morning, Lin offered him sweet fruit slices and a cup of spiced infusion. He accepted gratefully. She watched him eat with intense focus that made him self-conscious. Her feathers shimmered pale blue. He interpreted it as calm curiosity. In truth, it signaled pleased affection. Their days followed a rhythm. Lin guided him through the spire, introducing him to Avari architects, gliders, and brood scholars. They showed him the inner wind tunnels that allowed flight within the enclosed city. They demonstrated crafting techniques that blended instinctive motion with structural engineering. Leo recorded everything, asking polite questions, taking careful notes. He found the Avari charming, if occasionally cryptic. They found him refreshingly direct. Every time he spoke, Lin's feathers warmed in rosy tones. He never noticed. After 3 cycles, Leo adapted to the nest arrangement. He set up a small work platform in one corner. Lin seemed delighted by his presence. She brought him extra cushions. She rearranged the bedding to place him closer to the chamber's center. She trailed him often, listening to his breathing patterns as if learning them. Leo assumed she was studying him as part of the diplomatic exchange. That was only partly true. The first sign that something was amiss came during a lesson in Avari communication rituals. A brood scholar named Olan explained how wings and feathers conveyed intent. Leo listened closely. Olan demonstrated several gestures. When Olan reached the segment on courtship rituals, he hesitated for a moment, glanced at Lin, then smoothly moved on to another topic. Leo did not notice the omission. Lin did. Her feathers glowed gold with excitement. Later that night, while Leo sorted through his notes, Lin approached him with a bowl of warm water scented with blossom oils. She dipped her claws into it and offered it to him for cleansing. Leo accepted because he had learned that the Avari valued ceremonial washing before rest. Lin watched his hands carefully. Her feathers flushed rose again. She interpreted his acceptance as reciprocal affection. Leo finished washing and returned the bowl politely. She stepped closer. He took a step back, thinking she wanted to reach a high shelf. She misread the movement as playful retreat. The misunderstanding escalated quietly. The next day, Lin brought him a crafted band made of interwoven fibers. She placed it gently into his hands. The colors were warm and earthy. Leo admired it. "This is beautiful," he said. "Thank you." Lin's feathers brightened in a soft flare of rose and gold. She believed she had just completed a bonding ritual. Leo believed he had received a cultural gift. He placed the band around his wrist. Lin released a trill of delight that echoed through the chamber. Olan, passing by the entrance, heard the trill and froze. His feathers flickered in startled neon yellow. He peered into the chamber and saw Leo wearing the band. Olan stared at Lin. Lin radiated proud rose. Olan's feathers shifted in panicked blue and green. He walked away with hurried claw steps. Leo did not see him. The following morning, the entire mood of the spire seemed to shift. Avari workers who had once kept respectful distance now watched Leo with curious intensity. Their feathers glowed in shades he struggled to interpret. Some seemed approving. Others seemed amused. A few looked surprised in ways that made him uneasy. Leo asked Lin if something was happening. Lin replied with melodic confidence. "They recognize your choice," she said. "My choice?" He asked. Lin folded her wings in a gesture that suggested warmth and pride. "You accepted my bond band," she said. You rest in my nest. You share breath in the dawn. They welcome your union. Leo blinked. Union? I think there is some misunderstanding. Lin leaned forward, feathers blooming in affectionate hues. There is no misunderstanding, she said. We are joined. Panic flared through him. He held up his hands carefully. Lin, in my culture, accepting a gift is not a declaration of partnership, he said. I did not know the band had that meaning. Her feathers dimmed slightly, but held their rosy core. You slept in my nest, she said. That was part of the assignment, he replied. I thought it was the expected arrangement for observers. Her wings twitched in stunned confusion. The colors along her feathers flickered rapidly as she processed his words. Leo could see she was struggling. He tried to soften his tone. I respect your culture deeply, he said, but I did not intend to enter a union. I apologize for the misunderstanding. Lin absorbed this with slow, controlled breath. The rose began to fade. Pale blue returned gradually. She stepped back and folded her wings. Then we must correct this, she said with dignified calm. The spire must be informed. Leo nodded, relieved but worried. Will this cause trouble? It may cause whispers, she said. But truth is better than false bond. They walked through the spire together. Avari paused as they passed, reading Lin's feathers. She projected clarity and neutrality. Leo tried to do the same with his posture. Olan met them at the central perch. His feathers displayed cautious green. Lin explained the misunderstanding with precise, formal speech. Olan listened. Then he turned to Leo. Human custom differs greatly from ours, Olan said. This is clear. Yes, Leo said with sincere regret. I should have asked more questions. Your honesty honors both nests, Olan said. Lin exhaled slowly. Thank you, Leo replied softly. He settled into his new resting spot. The chamber felt different. It felt like a boundary had been redrawn, but with care rather than rejection. As he drifted to sleep, he heard Lin breathe in her gentle rustling rhythm. It no longer felt awkward. It felt like coexistence. Cycles passed. Leo continued his work, collecting cultural knowledge and strengthening diplomatic ties. Lin guided him with steady professionalism, though warmth still flickered through her feathers at times. She admired his persistence. He admired her grace. They became partners in the diplomatic sense, building bridges through shared learning. One evening, as crimson light from home fire filtered through the crystal vents, Lin approached Leo with another crafted band. It was different from the first. This one was thin, woven in simple patterns with colors that signified friendship rather than union. She held it out. This is for allies, she said. Leo smiled and accepted it with both hands. Then I accept as your ally, he said. She nodded, feathers glowing soft blue. This time, you understand its meaning. I do, he said. He placed the band on his wrist, and this time the gesture carried no confusion, only trust. The spire welcomed the new bond with calm tones. No one misread it. Leo completed his assignment months later, departing with deeper understanding than he had expected. He left with gratitude for Lin's patience and for the Avari openness. Lin watched him go from a high perch, feathers painted in shades of calm blue and warm gold. She had not gained a mate, but she had gained something valuable. In her culture, allies who crossed the boundaries of species and custom were rare treasures. As his shuttle lifted away, Leo looked back at the spire, thinking of how a single missing translation had nearly turned his mission into an unintended union. He smiled. He had learned more than he had been sent to observe, and he had left behind a bond that would outlast misunderstandings. Somewhere in the spire, Lin folded her wings and whispered a phrase carried on warm air currents. It meant safe travels. It meant return someday. It meant that even across cultures, understanding could be woven slowly, like threads in a band that joined two distant lives without binding them beyond their will. The shuttle turned toward distant human space. The spire shone behind him as a beacon of feathered light. Leo sat back, the simple band warm against his wrist, and felt the quiet pride of humanity rising again in the stars. The mission had been successful. Humanity had shown its strength not through power, but through patience, humility, and the ability to mend misunderstandings with honesty. And in the vast galaxy, that was a victory as brilliant as any triumph of arms. The stars opened before him. Humanity moved onward. The Avari watched with new respect. And peace, once fragile, found stronger footing between two very different species who had learned to speak with clarity at last.